Hi boys and girls, it's Miss Erin. We have been learning about Joseph. Do you remember who he is? He's one of the 12 sons of Jacob, and he was Jacob's favorite son. And because of that, sometimes he could be a little braggy. Sometimes he could kind of rub it in with his brothers, and his brothers didn't like him very much. And do you remember what happened to him? His brothers put him in a hole and sold him to some slave trader people and sold him into slavery as a slave. Let's see and watch this and see if it helps you remember.
Hey guys. Guys! Guys! What? Guess what Dad got me? The latest, newest iPad. It's so awesome. Did Dad get you anything? No. Too bad.
Hey! Could I take a picture of you in your new iPad?
Sure.
Thanks.
Welcome.
I've got a great idea. We can post this picture on eBay, and then we can finally get rid of him.
Now that wasn't exactly how it happened, was it? But that was just kind of a fun little thing. But the point is that his brothers got rid of him. They were tired of him bragging. They were tired of him getting special treatment, and they just wanted him to go away. So they sold him, and he ended up being sold to the Pharaoh in Egypt. And he had a lot of things happen to him in his story in the time in Egypt, but he ended up being the second in command, one of the most important people in all of Egypt. He was kind of like the vice president of Egypt, or like a vice principal at your school. He was super, he had a lot of power in Egypt, and so he was sold as a slave with his brothers who didn't want him. And he ended up being super, super important in the land of Egypt. So we are in chapters 44 and 45, and we're learning that in this time, as one of Joseph's jobs was to take care of all the food in Egypt because there was this big famine. Do you know what a famine is? A famine is something that happens when it doesn't rain for a very long time, and no crops can grow because there's no rain, and everything dies. All the food dies, and there's nothing to eat. And so people all across the lands were in a famine where there was not enough food. But Joseph had planned before for this famine, and he had a bunch of food, and so he was selling it to other countries and stuff in places that needed it, that didn't have any food because of the famine. And so in this story that we're learning about back in Canaan with Jacob and his brothers, they were in Canaan and they were in the famine too, and they didn't have any food. And so his dad Jacob told his brothers, guys, go to Egypt, and I want you to buy grain. I want you to buy food there and bring it back because we don't have any here, and I've heard that they have food, and so take this silver and go and buy food for us and bring it back. So that's what the brothers did. That's what Joseph's brothers did. So they went to Egypt. They left Benjamin at home because Jacob wanted him to stay. Because Joseph was gone now, Benjamin became his favorite son. And we all know it's not really good for parents to have a favorite child. But apparently Jacob did that. And first it was Joseph, and now that he wasn't there, Benjamin was his favorite, and he didn't want Benjamin to go away. So all the other brothers went to Egypt to buy the food. So they get there, and they have to go see Joseph, but they don't know it's Joseph. They just go to the person that is selling the food to them. And they get there, and Joseph recognizes them. Who are these guys, right? These guys are his brothers. The very ones that sold him, who didn't want him, who were tired of him and got rid of him and sold him. And he recognizes them. But the brothers don't. They don't recognize Joseph because he's in this different place. They thought he was dead. And he looked different because he was in this different culture, in different place. And it was almost like he had a disguise on. They didn't recognize him. They didn't know it was their brother Joseph. They just thought it was someone that they were buying food from. And so they go to Joseph and ask him if they could have some food, if they could buy some food for their family back in Canaan. So Joseph recognizes his brothers, but his brothers don't recognize him. And so he's wondering, okay, I wonder if they've changed. I wonder if they're sorry for what they did to me. And so he starts thinking, I'm going to see what they're about. So he starts accusing them of being spies, coming into Egypt and trying to gather information. And they're like, no, we just want to buy food. That's all. We just want to buy food. And he says, okay, we'll prove it. It's all your family that's here? Tell me about your family. And so they tell them that there are 12 brothers total. 10 of them are there. One of them is back home. The youngest one is back home with their dad in Canaan. And one of them is lost. Now, who is the lost brother? Who is the one that's gone? Joseph, okay? So Joseph starts thinking and he says, well, if it's true, if what you tell me is true, well, I want you to prove it. And I want you to go home and I want you to go get your youngest brother and bring him here so I can see that you're telling the truth. And they're like, oh no, Dad's not gonna like that. He doesn't want Benjamin to go, but what choice do we have? So Joseph gives them the food, he gives them the grain, and they leave behind Simeon in exchange for Benjamin. So Simeon has to stay in Egypt while the rest of his brothers go home and get Benjamin and come back. And if they're telling the truth, then Simeon can then go and they can all go. That's the plan. So they all go back to Canaan. They tell their dad, they tell Jacob everything that's happened and that they need to bring Benjamin back with him. So some time has passed and Jacob finally agrees, okay, we just have to do this. Go ahead and go take Benjamin with you and we'll just see what happens. So they get back to Egypt and they meet with Joseph. And Joseph is really excited to see Benjamin. He's happy. It's his brother. He was just super, super excited to see that he was okay. But he's still not convinced that his brothers love Benjamin because he knows now that Benjamin is the favorite, just like he was the favorite. So he's still wondering if his other brothers are doing the right thing, if they still love Benjamin. So he decides to test him again. And we're going to look in chapter 44, verses 1 through 2 in Genesis. Joseph told the manager of his house what to do. Fill the men's sacks with as much food as they can carry, he said. Put each man's money back in his sack. Then I want you to put my silver cup in the youngest one's sack. Put it there along with the money that he paid for its grain. So the manager did what Joseph told him to do. So Joseph is telling the manager, fill up all their sacks with food, but I want you to put my silver cup, my very expensive personal silver cup, in Benjamin's sack. I wonder what he's going to do. He's making his manager put something very precious to him in his brother's sack and sending them on their way, okay? But Benjamin doesn't know this. He doesn't know about the cup. None of the brothers know about the cup. So they start heading back home with all this food, with all the brothers. They're all together, except for Joseph, and they're going back home. Joseph sends out somebody to stop them, and he accuses them of one of them of stealing his cup. His silver cup is gone. Which one of them has it? And so they start looking, they start searching. They start with the oldest brother, and they go all the way down to the youngest brother. Which one had the cup in his sack? Benjamin. So Joseph's like, no problem. Okay, you just have to leave the one that stole my cup, the one whose sack it was in, is gonna have to stay and be my slave. So what does that mean? That means that Benjamin has to stay behind and be a slave to Joseph. Well, the brothers are just beside themselves. They are just so upset because they know this is going to kill their daddy. And they're like, no, please, you don't understand. My father has already lost a son. He cannot lose this boy. Please, I will take his place. Judah told him, the brother Judah said, I will do it. Please take me instead. Please let Benjamin go back home to our father so that our father will not be devastated and so sad. Please let me do it. And that was the moment that Joseph knew that his brothers had truly changed and were really sorry for what had happened and what they had done to him. So he was so excited about that, and he was so happy that he said in chapter 45, verses 7 through 8, he said, "Come close to me." And so they did. And then he said, "I am your brother Joseph. I'm the one you sold into slavery in Egypt." Wouldn't you love to see their faces? They were shocked. They were completely shocked. They did not realize that this was their brother Joseph. And it was crazy. So then, look a little bit further along, it says, but don't be upset. Joseph's telling them, don't be upset. And don't be angry with yourselves because you sold me here. God sent me ahead of you to save many lives. God sent me ahead of you to keep some of you alive on earth. He sent me here to save your lives. So then, it wasn't you who sent me here. It was God. So, Joseph told him, look, it's fine. Everything's turned out okay. Don't be upset. Don't think that I'm going to hurt you or get revenge on you for doing that to me, for what you did to me. He's saying, God did it. God took care of it all. He made it work all okay. And what you meant for harm, what you meant to do wrong to me, God meant it for good. God used it for good so that I could be in this position and that I could save you and that I could save all these people. And so, at the end of the story, everything was okay. He got to see all of his brothers. He sent his brothers home. He brought Jacob back. They all moved to Egypt in this wonderful land, the best land in Egypt. And he got to see his dad, Jacob, again, and it was all wonderful and it was so good. But there's a lot of lessons here that we can learn from Joseph and his brothers. I think the biggest lesson that we can learn from this story is that God can take all the bad in our lives and turn it to good. He can take all the yucky that we go through, all the pain, all the sadness, and if we let him, he will use that and turn it into something beautiful. I want to read a verse to you. It's in Romans chapter 8, verses 28, and it says, "We know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him." So if we love him and we follow him and we want to give him our lives and everything in our lives and every decision that we make, every choice that we have, if we let God have it, even those bad things that happen to us, he's going to work it out and it'll be good. Now, does this mean that if we love God, that he's going to take care of us and nothing bad will ever happen to us? Is that what that said? No, it's not a promise that we will never go through anything sad. We'll all have heartache. We'll all be sad at times. Bad things will happen. But the promise is that he's going to use that. He's not going to waste it. He's not going to waste our sadness. He's not going to waste anything that our suffering or our heartache. But he will use it and he'll turn it into something good. So I want you to think for a minute. Is there something that may have been not very good that happened to you or something kind of sad, but that God turned it around and used it for good?
One time we were at a church and all my friends were there and I had a really good time there, but we had to go to a different church because my dad changed jobs. So we went to another church and it was sad at first, but then it's really an awesome church and I learned a lot. It's fun.
One time I had a dog that we had gotten, but he wasn't a good family dog. He had hurt my sister and we had to give him back. So I was really, really, really sad. But we got a puppy and we have her for 5 years. and she's the best dog I've ever known, and it's all good now.
I thought I was gonna get the same teachers as my brother had before, which was really gonna be really cool. But one of the teachers was moved away, and so then I wasn't going to be able to have her. So the teacher I was going to have was going to be a male teacher, and I was really nervous about that, but then he turned into like an amazing teacher. It was great.
I think one of the biggest things for us to learn is to start looking for our blessings from God, to see, to notice the good things that happen to us, the good things that God gives us. And there's so many to choose from. There's so many wonderful things that God does to bless us. And so I want you, that's my challenge to you, is to start noticing the things that God puts in your life. It may not be a good thing. It may be kind of a hard thing, but it's drawing you closer to God. It's making you stronger and bringing him closer to him. And that's a good thing, even if it seems kind of hard. But I want you to start thinking about those things, okay? The blessings that God brings into your life. So let's pray about that. Dear God, thank you so much for my friends, these Connect kids and their families. I pray so many blessings on them, that they will know you closely, more closely than they do now, that you will draw their hearts closer to you, that they will see you so clearly. Lord, please just show yourself to us and lead us and guide us to those who don't know you. We love you in Jesus' name, amen. So now we're gonna do a little craft together about blessings. And you're gonna get, for your craft, 7 little cards, rectangle cards. And I want you to, in the course of this whole week, I want you to write 1 blessing a day. You can do it when you wake up in the morning. You can do it at bedtime. You can do it at breakfast. Anytime during that day. Every day though, I want you to write down 1 blessing that God has given you, okay? I want you to start noticing, okay? You guys have a great week.
Hi, my name is Hope.
My name's Lydia.
And today we're going to be making a blessing craft. You'll need a 3-foot piece of yarn,
A hole puncher
7 index cards,
and a marker.
So the first thing you're going to do is hole punch all of your index cards, either in the on the side or in the corner. See the holes?
And then you get your yarn and you string the cards on it.
Okay, then you're gonna take your marker and you're gonna write a blessing on each of the cards each day of every week. Make sure you write on 1 card a day for 7 days.
You don't have to just write a sentence. You can write a word, or you can draw a picture.
Bye guys!